Sunday, March 13th, 2022. Today on the Daily Review, we discuss a Robert Altman film that I had not seen but just finished watching. It's called California Split, starring, obviously, and George Segal. Boy, oh boy, I had not seen this movie. I'm a big Robert Altman fan. It's right in the pocket, 1974, right? He does Nashville after this, and before this, it's like he's got a couple other, it's like Images, and I'll have to look to give you, but that run is one of the best runs in film history. It's crazy. It's like 5 or 6 movies, like McCabe and Miss Miller, and yeah, and it goes all the way up to a movie called A Wedding, which I haven't seen. So maybe that is part of the run, but I just have never heard anybody ever talk about that film. So I'll have to check it out and make up my own mind, right? Let's get Odie in the shot here a little bit more. There we go. Lucia's here as well. Can you see that way back there? There's another dog in the back part of the bed. That's my mom's dog who's going to be here for the week, so maybe you'll get a better shot of her soon. Okay, so what the movie's about, it's a character movie, not a plot movie. Very 70s feeling. I mean, it's like oozing in 70s-ness. It's very alive. Robert Altman's style is like documentary style, very naturalistic. A lot of overlapping dialogue and phrases and stuff that don't have to necessarily do with the plot. Because around this time in filmmaking, they kind of like Spielberg and some other people like kind of figured out a formula of like, you know, cinema been around long enough to be like, okay, we like this. And I think as also television adds to that, to be able to like cultivate and test what people want. And then you could kind of, in somewhere mid-70s around Jaws, you know, it's like they figured it out. This is what people want. And it's great. I think it's great. But then it gets like, I mean, I shouldn't say they perfected it. They perfected it in like the 80s and maybe even into the early mid 90s. And then it starts getting cliche, in my opinion. You know, like when a movie now tries to do that stuff, like the movie I watched yesterday, The Atom Project, which was fine. You know, I probably gave it a little bit too high of a review, but you know, I knew it was completely predictable all the way through. Whereas this movie, although you kind of have a feeling which way it's going to go, it's the trip there is way more interesting than, you know, a more modern blockbuster type movie. Anyway, that's not 100% true all the time, but most of the time you find that. And, you know, it's not like in the 70s there weren't bad movies. There were tons and tons of bad movies as well. But, you know, some of the ones that raised above or, you know, are still around, kind of, it's crazy, the amount. It was a rich time period. Anyway, it's about Charlie, who's more of a regular guy, played by Elliot Gould. Not really a regular guy, excuse me, I got that wrong. He's a mess. He's a gambler. He's like a sloppy dude. And he's very gregarious and, you know, talking to everybody. Blah, blah, blah. And then he meets Bill, who is played by George Segal, and he they say in the description he's a professional gambler. He's not. He's just like he is, I guess, in a sense. Wow, I'm contradicting myself a lot. But he all right, cut. We'll just restart. Bam. Welcome to the Daily Review. This movie's about gambling addiction. And so we got two guys, one who has a more stable, steady lifestyle, that being George Segal, and then Elliot Gould is, you know, like a hustler, basically, like a street guy, the high and the low. And they team up, and Bill kind of gets pulled into Charlie's lifestyle and starts feeling terrible, you know, start going, this is bad, really getting really depressed. And even as he wins more and more, he gets more and more depressed. And so I thought, okay, Robert Altman, what does this title mean? California Split, you know? And it made me think of like, you know, Pavement song, 2 states. We want 2 states. North and South. Which was about wanting to split up California, I believe, into 2 states. And so I was like, oh, maybe that's what this is about. And maybe that's like some sort of political, there's like a political angle, I thought maybe. And I was like, oh, maybe one represents Democrats and one represents Republicans. And I started like trying to do all this analysis and stuff. And then I looked up and what California split means, and it's a poker term that's like a version of poker that's really cutthroat because it's high low. So I guess it's like rather simplistic, but very high, very risky. Apparently, I don't even fully understand the difference. And that's what I was like. Oh God, that's when you try to like over academic something. I certainly didn't over academic that sentence. What? Huh? Oh my God, Joe. You know what it is? I like this movie a lot, and I'm like stumbling over my words because it literally the credits just finished rolling, and I got excited and he went, "Ooh, start this." So this is the first non-Cinerama movie to use 8-track sound. And very soon after this, we get into way more than that. By Apocalypse Now, I think they had like 32 tracks or whatever, because I think he figured out how to, I don't know. There's a whole article about that I read, and about half of it I understand. Anyway, it allows for him to have, their stereo tracks. That's a big deal, not mono tracks. Like overlapping dialogue, which becomes a big part of his cinema, and it just helps make it naturalistic. And I love that. That's what makes it feel alive. These little moments and phrases that feel improvised, and maybe in some cases they are, but they're like teeming with life. And even like everybody is a character. Like even little people in the background have strange, original, memorable details. It's very cool. There's a lot of like just really memorable images of them like dancing out of the bar, and people having rants that aren't major characters, but they just are setting up the atmosphere. You don't throw oranges on an escalator. The one-arm Piccolo routine, amazing. That's the best punch I've ever been hit with. It's awesome. There's a real drunken, relaxed style and tone to this movie as a whole, which I think you could still probably cut out 5 minutes or so. You could cut it down just a tiny bit, but I think it's supposed to be a little bit, wishy-washy in terms of structure, because the characters aren't particularly stable. But maybe I'm just making excuses for it because I like it. Yeah, it's great, and they get into debt and they have to go for it, and a pair of fours and I'll shit in my drawers. But what's great is that it's not all one card game. It's not just poker. Like they go to the racetrack, they go boxing, blackjack, play basketball and roulette and craps. Craps is the most confusing game to me ever made. I don't understand it at all. You roll the dice, and then based on that first roll, you're trying to decide what your second roll is, and you place bets on various numbers that they're going to total up to. And then, so what the payout's probably bigger on the really low numbers and really high numbers? Whatever. That game's weird. But I don't understand why only one person's roll. It's like roulette, I guess, but there's a person instead of a wheel. Anyway, then I really realized what this movie's about. That it is a double entendre, or a two meaning, I should say, to the term California split. It's that high-low, the emotional high-low. So it's not a political thing. It's a poker thing, sort of, but what it really is how it feels, and that no matter how high you get with the gambling addiction, that will just bring about some sort of sadness within at least our main character here, Bill, who's like, oh no, this is destructive. So yeah, it's a little bit punishing to watch at times because you're like, but it's not as punishing as that movie, The Gambler. You ever see that movie with Michael Caine, right? That's a real nosedive, but I don't know. I really liked it. I think it's a classic. It's got some messy stuff in there, and so I'll have to bunk it a few points for that stuff, but subject to change. I wish I could put that asterisk underneath. Subject to change. Like if I watch this again, I kind of feel like it'll go up to an A-. But I have to mark it down a little bit for it's a little bit sloppy, and yeah, That's it. That's it. Oh, I went kind of long. Sorry. Remember, guys, you can always like and subscribe if you like and you like to subscribe. You can do both. And otherwise, I will talk to you later, and we will do maybe another Altman movie soon. I haven't watched Nashville in a while. Ooh, Nashville. Goldblum's in this movie, too, for a second.